I'm Joyce Chaplain. I teach in the history department at Harvard University, and I'm a historian of early America, of the history of science, and of Benjamin Franklin. We're exploring a letter that Franklin wrote in May 1775 back to a friend in England, Joseph Priestley, having just gone home to Philadelphia in the wake of a scandal and the emerging crisis with Great Britain. The United States hadn't declared its independence. Franklin had kind of been on the fence, wanted to broker a reconciliation, but going home in the wake of the scandal really represented his willingness to contemplate a permanent break. So not only with England, but with a lot of the people he knew there. The letter back to Priestley, however, was promising that he wasn't breaking his friendship with him. In the letter, Franklin tells Priestley that he made an important philosophical discovery. And he doesn't specify what it is. He says, look, when I have time again, I'll tell you. It would be a while before he has enough time. He explains to Priestley that he'd been collecting thermometrical readings of water in different parts of the North Atlantic in order to chart the characteristics and extent of the Gulf Stream, which he'd had an interest in for a number of years and had already charted once before, but he wanted more precision in how anyone crossing the Atlantic might know where the stream was to assist them in navigation. And Priestley was in some ways the perfect person to talk to about this. Priestley was a scientific experimenter, one of a number of chemical investigators who do important work in the second half of the 18th century to lay out our understanding of chemistry. As far as we know, Priestley was the last visitor to Franklin before he packs up and leaves. And so it's interesting that he is one of the first people that Franklin writes to, kind of making sure that that bond, all the other bonds are breaking, but that bond would not. It's true that Franklin and Priestley also shared a lot of political beliefs. Priestley would eventually, in essence, support the American Revolution, to say that the colonists had a point, and that a break with Britain wasn't really necessary. I mean, both he and Franklin would kind of have already been perceived as more radical in political temperament, but they had very serious philosophical questions about what religion was. And that really, I think, affects the way they think about power and authority, that they don't think conventionally in terms of top-down rulership or authority. And their sense of how society should work and how they themselves interact is a little bit more egalitarian. It's actually kind of beneficial for us that Franklin did separate from Great Britain. He and Priestley were such close friends that we assume they talked about a lot of things in person. And we don't know what they are because they didn't write them down. There is some correspondence, of course, when they were both living in Britain, but there is a little bit more information that comes to light because of this separation, first Franklin being in Philadelphia, and later even more inaccessible when he's in Paris representing the United States. And it's not wise for British subjects to be corresponding with him at that point. There still is a lot of communication, so rather incredibly, a volume of Franklin's works and correspondence is published in London in 1779, right in the middle of the war, with somebody saying, well, this is the work of a scientific genius. This has a kind of universal application and validity, whatever the political events, and was accepted as a sort of sign of the continued correspondence among scientists in what would then have been called the Republic of Letters. And that's an interesting concept because it says there's this other set of connections that people have with each other. A republic is a political concept, right? The United States is going to be a republic. But the Republic of Letters was something that existed above and beyond or despite whatever political differences people might have.